残酷な天使のように少年よ神話になれ
Hello and welcome to heterochroMEDIA. This is a podcast where we compare two different forms of media that are not directly connected with each other. We find similarities and then compare them. This is part 2, 3, 4. I don't know how I'm dividing this. So it's the next part of episode 2 where we compare Neon Genesis Evangelion with Pink Floyd's The Wall. Yes, that was a gunfire. We are very far in the boonies, if you've not told.
We're rednecks.
Yeah, we are completely gone. Which also defies the belief that all of us rednecks do not know what anime is.
That is true.
We're not cultured. We are very cultured.
Yeah, we have all sorts up here. We got gunshots. We got crazy cult rituals.
Me and rednecks have a thing going where every time they see me, they hate crime. Anyway.
That is Jess, one of my co-hosts. I'm Spencer, aka Readout Productions.
And I'm Connor, aka A Humble Collector.
And bringing up that gunshot, we're just going to jump right into it. We're talking about Evangelion still. We're not on the wall yet. We're still on Evangelion.
Yeah, because we haven't summarized the plot.
Yeah, we just spent the last half hour ranting about the production history, and I must apologize that if I sounded really gibberishy. I do have all these notes, but I also had sunglasses on. And funny thing, I also need glasses to read. So having sunglasses on in a dark setting makes it hard to read, and I don't know what I'm thinking. So while I was suffering from eye strain, Jess over here was suffering from a giant wig,
5-pound wig,
holding down her head.
currently on our 10 color contacts.
And Connor was just...
I was just wearing what I normally wear to work.
Yeah, he was tired of feeling like he was about to go to work tomorrow. So we gave up parts of the cosplay, but don't worry, we have lovely photos commemorated. They're passing right now. So we're actually going to go into the actual what Evangelion is supposed to be about, not the meta behind closed doors, what was happening creating it. I'm going to throw this really into Connor and Jess's court, as they are far more passionate about Evangelion. They know far more about the character psyche than I ever imagined will. So we're just going to kind of just go through from first episode to the end of Evangelion. And I'll just kind of just keep time as we go through the episodes.
So, I will caveat this by saying that Evangelion is a very hard thing to understand.
Yes.
As one of the greatest weebs of all time, Winston Churchill once said, Evangelion is a riddle wrapped in enigma surrounded by a mystery. And the first time that we finished the series, we had to look up multiple YouTube videos to actually figure out, like, what had happened.
Yeah, you know it's good anime when you have to do that.
And even when we were watching End of Evangelion earlier, Readout would ask questions, and I would try to give him an answer, and then he'd be like, well, what about this? And I'd be like, I don't know. I genuinely do not know. But yeah, I guess I'll pass it to you if you want to start us off with episode 1.
Oh man, episode 1. Let me see if I remember this correctly, because I haven't watched it in like a few months. It starts off with Shinji with a payphone.
Trying to call home.
But you know, he has a lot of daddy issues. It doesn't really work out for him. His mom's also dead.
Get used to that, parent.
So it's almost like a Disney movie.
Literally. And we're also introduced to Misato Katsuragi, who is hot, and
That's the first thing you have to say about her.
I mean,
she's my fave.
she is one of the quintessential anime women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She works for NERV, which is like this government agency. What do they do exactly?
They fight the angels.
They fight angels.
Hey, I asked that half the time.
Which are like these creatures from space, basically.
You know the meme about, like, angels in media versus, like, the biblically accurate angels? The angels in Evangelion are the biblically accurate kind of angels.
And they're great.
They're very... Each one is different. Like, the series kind of follows almost like a Monster of the Week kind of formula, where, like, oh no, there's another angel that showed up, and this one's different than the last one. So they're all kind of unique and have their own stuff, which is really cool. But the first angel in episode 1, I pulled up a brief synopsis of the episodes here, is Sakiel.
Which one is that one?
That's the one that has like that the bird mask, like a plague doctor.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so
Okay, so so
many thoughts processing.
Misato is sent to get Shinji by Shinji's father, Gendo Ikari, who is world's worst dad, honestly.
Yes.
Because Shinji is meant to pilot something called Ava Unit 1, which is basically as what you think it's a giant robot in the first few episodes before it goes berserk, and that's another thing.
Yeah.
So it's basically Shinji, and he thinks he's about to see his dad, but his dad's like too busy for him. So Shinji cries a lot. Shinji's a very emotional character. There's a lot of layers to Shinji.
Yeah, which kind of unravel as the series goes on.
Yeah.
But yeah, he basically kind of nopes out a little bit. He's like, I don't know how to pilot this thing. I don't really want to be here.
I'm a 14-year-old boy.
Shinji's being the most rational person. Actually, it's the most rational he may be in the whole freaking show.
Yeah.
And basically, since Gendo can't seem to convince Shinji to get in the robot, they wheel Rei in.
Rei Ayanami.
Would you like to talk to us about Rei?
Okay, Rei Ayanami. They wheel her in. She's basically beat up on her deathbed from. She's also piloting an Ava Unit 0, which she had an accident with that. And since Shinji won't get in the robot, they're like, fine, we'll send Rei in, even though she's literally dying. So
we're gonna guilt trip her.
Yeah, so they're like wheel her past Shinji, and Shinji's like, oh shit, man, this girl's literally dying.
And keep in mind, we mean literal wheeled in.
Like on a gurney. Yeah.
She's literally bleeding still. And then Shinji's like, well, I'd be kind of a bad person if I let her take this, so I guess I have to get in the robot.
Yeah, so without any training, he is thrown into this mech and is told, all right, go fight the Angel. Which, by the way, throughout this episode, we've been watching the military drop what's called N2 mines on, which are like, imagine a nuke, but it's not nuclear. But that doesn't kill this thing. It just, like, stops it long enough. It's buying them time to essentially get Shinji in the robot. And, yeah, so he goes up, and that fight goes about as well as you would expect when you throw a child with no training into a very high-tech and complex piece of military equipment.
Yeah, basically, the end of this episode, you think he's dead, because it kind of just fades to black after he gets hit.
Yeah, and that brings us into episode 2, where Shinji wakes up in the hospital and can't really remember what happened. But basically, Gendo's like, you suck. Why can't you do your job right?
My son's a disappointment.
Yeah. And so Misato kind of takes on the role of Shinji's legal guardian and takes him back to her apartment where he will be living for the remainder of the series.
Arguably one of the most controversial characters of the series, Pen, the Penguin.
Yes, he's on sabbatical from representing the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yes.
In Misato's apartment, she really is a girl boss because her apartment's just covered in beer cans and mess.
Yes.
And a relatable queen, honestly.
Yeah. You know the important detail I wrote down here? That at this time, the beer she is drinking is a Yabiso beer. Yabiso beer? Is that how I pronounce it?
Is it a real beer?
Yebisu. Yes.
I thought it was a made-up anime beer.
No, it's real.
Well, now
I'm shook.
More on that later, though. She gets another brand later on. I'll bring it in.
Okay. But yeah, so basically she's been living in this apartment with her penguin, and now Shinji is moving in. And at some point during this, he also kind of starts recalling what happened during the battle and how he got his ass kicked. And then he kind of lost control of Ava Unit 1, and it kind of went berserk. And
is this when it breaks out, kind of?
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
So, when we say berserk, the Avas, spoiler alert, they aren't really robots. The Ava itself, it's like, I don't even know how to explain an Ava.
It's like a biological
organism. And going berserk means it takes on a mind of its own, and it starts, like, going against whatever the pilot wants it to. So Shinji, I think at this point is knocked out.
Yeah, he's done.
Yeah,
So
he's gone.
We see the Ava like crack open its jaws, and you see teeth, and like you're like, oh, that's a living thing. Apparently,
It kind of looks like that.
yeah.
So I guess at this point we should probably talk a little bit about Tokyo 3, especially since episode 3 is where Shinji goes to school.
It's like it was all meant to be.
Yeah. So Tokyo 3 apparently... Oh gosh, we gotta talk about the impacts.
We'll get there.
Oh man.
Okay,
Let's just do it now.
So Nerve HQ is in a city called Tokyo 3. Tokyo 3 is a city that Nerve built, and it's really cool because anytime they get attacked, like the skyscrapers like slide underground, and like they have a defense grid that comes up. It's actually really cool. There's this whole like underground like geofront they call it, but it's like this giant underground cavern that has like its own lake and landscape. It's cool. But basically there was an event in Antarctica 15 years before the events.
15, I think.
Yeah, 15. Before the events of the show called the Second Impact. And that kind of effed the world a little bit. Basically, Antarctica exploded, mass flooding, tens of millions of people died, and then, of course, there were less resources, there were wars and things. And the world is just kind of finally, after like 15 years, coming out of all of that. And now the angels are showing up, and Nerve is like, oh, well, we gotta fight the angels, or else there's gonna be a third impact. And the world ain't gonna survive that one, which...
That's the big one.
we'll get into. But yeah, so episode 3, Shinji goes to school, meets his school friends, Toji, Kensuke, and Akari. And what do we want to talk about those characters? Or I guess it's Taji, not Toji.
No, it is Toji.
Okay,
It's
Toji.
Toji.
I'm horrible with names.
I'm going. Hey, we're working not only with. Hey, it'd be bad enough we're working with the ADV dub. We're working with the freaking Netflix dub.
Yeah, man.
Go with us. Be gentle.
So these characters, they play a very small role, but they're very enjoyable.
Yes.
Like they kind of put back in the perspective. These are literally children.
Yeah.
Set into robots, and you kind of get Shinji a little out of his shell whenever he meets these new friends. Actually, forgot about this part. So Toji hates Shinji at first because Shoji's sister is in the hospital from like the last angel battle, which Shinji was fighting. So he's kind of like blames Shinji for her injuries.
Straight up decks him.
Punches him. Shinji's like, I deserve that.
yeah. Shinji just kind of accepts it.
Which kind of takes Toji's kind of like, oh, what?
Yeah, he's like, you're supposed to fight back.
We have a damaged soul
and then
here.
We have another angel incoming this episode.
Oh yeah,
Shamshul, which
I'm glad you guys are using the names because
So Shamshul,
I only just now realized they have names.
really.
Oh, it's in...
I don't even want to know how they're spelled.
So here's the thing. The article links to...
Like cells.
Yeah, it's like about cells.
Okay, well, Shamshul looks like
Cells?
Looks like DNA.
Yeah, it looks like DNA.
it looks like DNA. Yeah,
We'll call it DNA.
Yeah,
DNA, bro.
The DNA is now attacking Shinji.
yeah.
And Shinji must defeat it as usual. And he has a bit of another mental breakdown. Ava goes berserk.
Get in the goddamn robot.
He eventually gets into close combat and obliterates this angel.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of, afterwards, he's very, like, emotionally devastated, a little traumatized.
Yeah, because these kills are kind of gory.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
Toji and Kensuke, is this where they were on the hill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were watching. And
Yeah,
Toji,
Ava 1 gets thrown right next to them.
Yeah, Toji sees how hard this thing is on Shinji and kind of, like, gets rid of his resentment towards him, and they kind of become friends then.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then you have to actually ride inside the the
Yeah,
entry
yeah.
plug.
Shinji lets them in to like keep them safe. So Kensuke is arguably one of the more mentally stable characters on the show, but he's just a nerd and he likes military technology. And when he's not in school, he's apparently like living out in the woods a lot, playing survival games. He's basically kind of like a prepper who's also like really into World of Tanks, probably.
He has more of an arc in the rebuilds.
Yeah, he's a much more of an actual character in the rebuilds for sure. And then of course he also meets Hikari, who is class rep, I believe.
Yeah.
Who is a very minor character in the series.
Yeah, she has only minor significance in later episodes for reasons.
Bigger significance in the rebuilds. I'm good.
Yeah.
A lot of the side characters have a lot bigger part when you get into those.
The rebuilds were very controversial when they came out, but I actually quite liked them.
Me too.
Which is why we were going to save them. Expect a rebuild of Evangelion series this winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be good. So that brings us in episode 4, where the first time that Shinji decides he doesn't want to be a pilot anymore, he leaves.
I have written here, and these are the only 3 words to describe the episode, Shinji runs away.
Pretty much.
Yeah, basically, that's the whole episode. I don't really think we need to say any more than that. Shinji leaves multiple times throughout the series. Like, he'll just hop on a train and go somewhere. That damn train station, I swear we go there like 5 times.
He has his little headphones in.
He has his Walkman.
It's a big meme that he listens to Radiohead, so I just picture him listening to Creep.
Yeah, and believe it or not, I think for the most part, the Walkman he's wearing is like a real Walkman. There's actually several pieces of technology, like particularly Sony technology, that just shows up. It's full on detailed, accurate.
Yeah,
just because probably was easy. It was probably easier just to grab an actual Walkman and sketch that than having to come up with one.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, the next episode, Unit 0 is finally repaired, and Shinji basically tries to get to know Ray more, since they were the only 2 people that are in kind of this weird pilot situation.
Good luck with that.
And Connor said this once, and it really sticks out to me. He said, Ray has the personality of wet cardboard. And he's not really wrong. She's very... there's kind of like a reason behind that.
There is.
But
we'll
she's
get
very monotone, no expression shown. She does what she's told. She doesn't really show a lot of feelings or personality.
She lives in a crack den, basically.
Yeah. She has an apartment.
That's one way. But
at one point, Shinji goes over there to deliver homework.
And yeah.
She lives in like this super rundown apartment building. Doesn't get her mail. He goes in. It's literally like bare concrete walls, like it's like some sort of Soviet apartment block. And it's literally just like a bed, a dresser, garbage can full of bloody bandages from her being injured, and that's like it. There's no decorations. There's nothing. But we'll get into why Ray is the way she is later. But this is when Ramiel shows up.
Oh no, maybe I do know some of the angel names, because I recognize that.
Ramiel is in the fandom considered the hot angel, even though he's just a floating diamond.
He's literally just an octahedron. There's not any...
But everyone's like, oh, yeah.
Oh, he has a side job of posing for album covers.
He's secretly a Chippendale dancer.
Like that one?
Yeah, I did. But yeah, he tries drilling into Nerve, and he has this powerful particle beam weapon that can just destroy mountains. It's kind of dope.
It's pretty epic.
Yeah. So going into episode 6, Ramiel's still around, and basically he has. We gotta talk about AT fields. So the Avas produce this thing called an AT field, which is basically like a force field.
Absolute terror field.
Yeah. And basically, it's like a super extra protective layer. Angels have it, Avas have it, and later on in the series, we find out that all life has AT fields. They're just super weak on humans and things. And then without your AT field, you just dissolve. But we will get back to that. I assure you.
We need a jar to every time we say we're going to get to that later, we just free change.
But basically, Ramiel's AT field is so strong that like none of the weapons they're using can like hurt it, and it's just drilling into Nerve HQ. And so they don't really have a lot of time, and because of that, they bring in an experimental like Ava sniper rifle,
which if I'm not mistaken, in order to properly power it, they have to suck all of the electrical life out of Tokyo 3.
No, not just Tokyo 3. Like they literally have to like take power from basically the rest of Japan, like divert all of the energy from every power plant in Japan to this rifle.
I mean, you don't get a lot of shots with this rifle, obviously.
No.
This may not have been the greatest strategy.
And Shinji does miss his first shot.
Yep.
Surprising.
You missed! With a cannon!
And he barely manages a second shot.
And Rey's whole job in this is to use her Ava as a shield to give Shinji time to take a second shot if he needs it.
Yeah.
So she has actually a very cool Ava shield, I believe, that we don't see ever again.
I think they just fabricated just for this fight.
Yeah.
Because I know they had to spend time fabricating it.
Yeah. And so her Ava gets, like, super critically wounded again. And
Shinji's afraid she's dead.
Yeah.
But he finds her alive and cries with relief, and Rey's like, "Why are you crying?" I don't understand.
You said too much emotion. You said it too much
She's like,
emotion.
error.
Yeah.
That's much better.
But also, I think during, I can't remember if it was this episode or the previous episode, we get the flashback to when Rey was injured during that training exercise. And Gendo actually ran down and, like, seriously burned his hands, like, opening the hatch to get to Rey. And Shinji has a similar experience here, getting into the hatch. Which... Oh, gosh. Do we want to talk about what Rey actually is, or we want to wait for that?
Hold it.
Hold it.
Okay. So, the next episode...
I'm just over here just playing conductor. Hold it. Go.
Yeah.
Stop. Reverse. Don't derail.
Basically... Okay, so this is like a background lore episode, because this is where Ritsuko basically explains what Nerve is, what the angels are,
And
what the impact
Ritsuko is... We haven't talked about her yet.
So
But she's another woman that works in Nerve, and she's a scientist. She's the chief scientist.
She does science
yeah,
stuff.
She's smart.
Her mother built like the supercomputer that runs Nerve, and she went to college with Masato.
They're buddies.
They're buddies. But yeah, around this time though, there's a rival organization, Nerve, that builds their own like giant robot that has an onboard nuclear reactor, which nuclear reactors are quite safe if you build them right. However,
put it on a mecha is a good idea.
No. Insert link to the U.S. Army portable nuclear reactor project and what happened with that. A bunch of people died. And, yeah, basically, the reactor's going to go into a meltdown. Shinji has to go deal with it. That's kind of how that happens.
Well, I believe, too, doesn't Masato get involved? Because I believe they send her actually onto...
Yeah, no, she actually gets in the robot to try to shut down the reactor, and basically she finds out the meltdown was actually staged. It was actually an act of sabotage, which I don't think they ever explicitly say, but I'm assuming it was Sele or Sele.
Seal.
They never say.
I'm assuming it's Seal that probably does that. Sele.
They're creepy.
Which we gotta talk about. Seal.
There's so many aspects.
So,
This is not easy.
do you know what the Illuminati is?
Let's just leave on that. No, we have to explain more.
So yeah, so in this mecha,
Again,
there-
mecha.
there is this ancient secret organization called Sele, which has these documents called the Dead Sea Scrolls, which apparently are different than our Dead Sea Scrolls. But basically, they have a prophecy that kind of lays out how everything's supposed to go down. And they're kind of secretly pulling the strings with Nerve and all these other governments to try to bring about the third impact, which will lead to the Human Instrumentality Project, which we will get to later.
Of course.
Now, I will say before we continue, I feel that the show can be divided into 3 phases, which is episodes 1 through 7, episodes 8 through 15, and episodes 16 through 25 or 26, or however long it goes on for.
Yeah.
26.
Yeah, okay, 26. And the reason I say this is the first 7 episodes are all set up and can be really bleak at times and really, really dry with information. But then, everything changes in episode 8.
Because this is when Asuka comes in.
I'll let you talk about.
Ah, my girl Asuka. So, in this episode, Ava Pilot Unit 2 is coming to Japan. Yay. So, they're going to meet her, and they go on the... Okay, I don't know. There's a ship that's transporting Asuka, who is Unit 2's pilot, and the unit itself, bringing it to Japan to be with the others.
Yep, on an old... Oh gosh, what
It's
class
like a-
carrier is that?
Girl.
I should know this.
I'm sure not a lot of people.
I'll throw the photo up.
Yeah,
With the
previous to the current class of U.S. carriers, like the Ford that just came out, the old class.
Maybe it's a Langley. It's Langley because her
Oh,
name's
oh.
Langley. I don't know for certain.
That'd be
Maybe it's a hidden reference.
That doesn't sound right. I don't know.
Essex. I don't
But
know.
basically, there's an actual like fleet that's transporting this unit from Germany, and it's like the UN's biggest fleet they have left apparently at this point.
I like to think that my dad's out there in the background fighting a typhoon. He spent a lot of time out in like the Indian Ocean and stuff. He's just out there.
So basically Misato, Shinji, and Tochi and Kensuke are here for this too.
Oh yeah, they come
which-
along for the ride.
Kensuke is a huge military nerd. He begged to go along on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they fly onto this carrier to meet up.
Oh yeah, and Asuka's being escorted by Ryuji.
Yes.
Kaji, who also went to college with Misato and Ritsuke,
Yes.
and dated Misato for a time. And there's tension, surprisingly.
Everybody saying it with me now. More on that later.
And the plot thickens.
And while they're on the ship, another angel, this time an aquatic angel since they're on the water, Gagiel, I don't know if that's the right pronunciation.
I'm gonna go with Gagiel.
We'll
That
go with
sounds.
it. Begins to attack, and Asuka, being a badass, is like, "I've got this," and gets in her Ava, and
Oh, she dragged
starts
Shinji in
taking
too.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's because, she overhears that Shinji has like this high sync rate, which means that he's really good at his Ava, but he's not trying. And she thinks initially that means that he's a really good pilot, that he must be really dedicated and wants to impress him. And then she quickly starts realizing that
Oh man, he's crying.
he's a wet bag of cement.
Yeah. So they're fighting. The angel drags Xena 2 underwater.
It's a program error.
It's thought noise. I told you not to disturb me.
What do you mean?
You're thinking in Japanese, aren't you? If you must think, do it in German.
Well, I'll try. Strudel, bronze.
So, also, I believe this is the only angel that actually gets killed by conventional weapons.
It's one of the few, I think.
Yeah, because basically, while Unit 2 is down there fighting in the water like a crocodile hunter of some kind, they come up with this plan, which I still don't fully... I don't think it works the way they think it works. But basically, there's 2 battleships in the fleet, and what they're going to do is they're going to purposefully sink the battleships and ram them into this angel, and then fire their, I'm assuming 15-inch main guns at point-blank range, decimating this thing. And they do. Unit 2 is able to get in position and blow it up and everything. But the way that the scene is animated, this is my one problem in the entire original series with the way that things are set up. Those battleships are completely underwater. Which, it just bothers me, because, I don't think the main guns work at that point. Obviously, anybody that's on board those is dead.
Connor. Just repeat to yourself, it's a show. I should really just relax.
Yes, that... I'm just saying, they could have done it. They could have flooded the forward ballast. They could have, lowered the bow.
And you could have been a doctor, but we can't talk about what the could have beens are.
Fair enough. Anyway, they kill the angel, and
apparently during this, Asuka and Shinji broke the synchronization records with their Avas, which is a big win for them.
I don't remember that.
I don't either. It's just what it says.
Yeah, it's just what it says.
It's what it says on
And
the
the next
wiki.
episode that's relevant.
Oh, and Kaji delivers Adam to Gendo,
Oh, yes.
Ooh,
which is plot.
Adam.
And I think we're going to take a break there, because I think that's a good point, because when we come back, we're going to talk about a lot of serious shit.
Yeah, things start escalating from here.
So,
Yes, sir.
before we continue, though, up to this point, how many times does Shinji try to run away?
I think only one.
I think
at this
only
point.
once, up to this point.
Okay.
But there's more later on.
Oh, yeah, there's more to come.
He definitely talks about it, and he definitely, what do they call it now, quietly quits a few times, I think.
I don't want to be a naval pilot.
Um,
That's what he sounds like.
Get in the robot!
No.
which led to another meme in the fandom, which is getting the damn robot Shinji.
Yeah, I'm a very big fan of that one. I love saying it regularly.
To be fair,
I get it.
you have to beat him a couple times, but he gets in the robot eventually,
He's also a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah.
It's a lot for him to take in.
But here, I will say this. The first 7 episodes, I think, are a bit rough to get through. That's just me personally. I think as you're expecting more, there's a lot of what's going on. And don't be wrong, you'll be asking that for the whole show, but especially in the first 7 episodes. And Shinji sometimes like, Shinji, just get in the goddamn robot. So I'm really hard on Shinji. I know I shouldn't be. But episode 8, I will say, changes everything. Now we're getting into the peak of the show in my eyes.
Yeah, which is kind of the dynamic amongst the 3 pilots. And we get more plot stuff that starts to sort of kind of make sense. That's the thing with Evangelion, is you get an answer to a question, but there's like 8 other questions stapled onto that answer. And you just never reach the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good description. So, we'll catch you guys in the next part where we're going to wrap up our discussion of Evangelion. Be sure, if you want to be the first notified of that next part, subscribe to heterochroMEDIA, and also be sure to follow our podcast on Buzzsprout. Thank you folks for watching. See you in the next one.
Bye.